When my daughter looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You have until tomorrow to pack your things and leave my house," I collapsed right there on our family room floor. 3 days later, I was sleeping in a motel room paid for with my last $20. That's when I realized life is like a will. The fine print always contains the most devastating secrets. If you're watching this, please subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a courthouse thriller, and you'll want to be here for every shocking revelation. My name is Robert Wilson, and for 62 years, I thought I knew what family meant. I'd spent my life building a home and raising my daughter Anna after my wife passed when Anna was just 7. The old Victorian house on Maple Street had been our sanctuary, a place where I'd bandaged scraped knees, celebrated birthdays, and later welcomed Anna back after college. I never imagined those same walls would witness my own child throwing me out like yesterday's trash. It started on a crisp October morning. I was in my study, organizing some old papers when I came across Miguel's will, my late husband who died 15 years ago. There was something odd about it, something I couldn't quite place. Before I could examine it further, I heard the front door slam. Anna stormed in, her face contorted with an anger I'd never seen before. Her normally warm brown eyes, so like her father's, were cold and distant. "You've been lying to me my entire life," she said, her voice eerily calm. "Anna, what are you talking about?" I stood up, confused. She threw a folder on my desk. "I found the real property deeds. This house was never yours. It belonged to Dad, and now it belongs to me. You've been pretending to be the generous mother, letting me stay here, when you had no right to this place at all." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "That's not true. Your father and I." "Save it." She cut me off. "I've spoken to a lawyer. You have no legal claim here. You have until tomorrow to leave." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own daughter, the little girl I'd raised alone, was throwing me out on the street. "Anna, please. This is some kind of mistake. We can talk about this." "There's nothing to discuss," she said, turning away. "I want you gone by tomorrow." That night, I barely slept. How could this be happening? What had I missed? The will I'd found earlier seemed important now, but in my shock, I'd left it on the desk when Anna confronted me. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't piece it together through my tears. Script part separator ===. The next morning, I packed a small suitcase with trembling hands. 62 years old, and everything I own now fit into one bag. Photos of Anna growing up, a few clothes, my medication, and my wedding ring. The only things I could grab before Anna stood watching me, arms crossed, at the front door. "The keys," she demanded, holding out her hand. I placed them in her palm, noticing how her fingers, the same ones I'd guided to form letters when she was learning to write, now curled around my last connection to our home. "Anna," I pleaded one last time. "Whatever you think I've done, save it for someone who cares." Her voice was ice. "Don't come back, and don't contact me. My lawyer will reach out if necessary." As the door closed in my face, I stood on the porch where I'd once welcomed Anna home from her first day of school, her prom, her college graduation. Now I was the one being sent away. I ended up at the Parkview Motel, a dingy place on the edge of town that charged by the week. The desk clerk gave me a pitying look as I handed over most of my cash savings. That first night alone was the hardest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Anna's face, not the cold mask of the woman who'd thrown me out, but my little girl asking for one more bedtime story. What had happened to us? What terrible thing did she think I'd done? Sleep finally came around dawn, but I was jolted awake by my phone ringing. For one hopeful moment, I thought it might be Anna. Instead, it was Carol, my oldest friend. "Marion, thank God you answered. Anna's telling everyone you stole money from Miguel's estate. She's frozen your joint bank account. What on earth is happening?" The room spun around me. "She's what? It's all over social media. She's saying you falsified documents for years. That you've been living off money that should have gone to her." I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about the house. Anna was destroying my reputation, my entire life. Script part separator ===. That's when I realized this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. This was war, and my own daughter had declared it without warning. I spent the next 3 days in a fog. The motel room became my prison, as I was too ashamed to show my face around town. My phone kept buzzing with texts from people who'd seen Anna's posts. Some offered sympathy, others demanded explanations I didn't have. On the third night, as I sat on the edge of the sagging mattress staring at my dwindling cash, something shifted inside me. The shock began to give way to anger. I'd sacrificed everything for Anna, my career, relationships, my entire life had revolved around giving her the best. And this was my reward? I'd raised her alone after Miguel died of a sudden heart attack. There were nights I'd gone hungry to make sure she had what she needed. I'd worked 2 jobs to put her through college. How dare she accuse me of stealing? How dare she throw me away like this? That night, I made a decision. I would not go quietly. I would not be the victim in Anna's story. The next morning, I called the one person who might have answers, Edward Pierce, Miguel's old attorney who had handled his will. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since Miguel's estate was settled. Marian. His voice sounded surprised when he answered. I've been meaning to call you. Have you heard what Anna is saying about me? A heavy sigh came through the phone. Yes, and there's something very wrong here. The documents Anna is presenting, they don't match what I have in my files. My heart raced. What do you mean? The will she's showing people isn't the one Miguel and I prepared. Someone has created a very convincing forgery. I gripped the phone tighter. So I'm not crazy. Something is happening. Marian, Edward's voice dropped lower. This goes beyond a family dispute. Whoever altered these documents committed fraud. And I don't think Anna is behind this. I think someone is using her. What do you mean? My mouth went dry. The timing is too perfect. Did you know the Hollington Development Group made an offer on your property last month? They want that entire block for a new commercial complex. But suddenly, pieces were starting to fit together. Script part separator, Edward, I need to see you immediately, I said, a new urgency in my voice. I'll meet you at my office in an hour. When I arrived at Pierce Legal Associates, Edward's secretary gave me a sympathetic look that made my cheeks burn with humiliation. News travels fast in small towns. By now, everyone had heard about poor Marian Wilson, thrown out by her own daughter. Edward looked older than I remembered, his hair now completely white, but his eyes were sharp as ever. He closed his office door and pulled out a thick folder. I've been reviewing everything related to Miguel's estate, he said, spreading documents across his desk. This is the original will I drafted with Miguel 15 years ago. He left everything to you, Marian, with provisions for Anna's education and a trust she could access at 30. I leaned forward, scanning the familiar language. This matched what I remembered. And this, Edward said, sliding over another document, is the will Anna presented to the court last week. Notice the differences. The papers looked almost identical, but as I read closer, my blood ran cold. This version left the house directly to Anna, with me having only lifetime residential rights at the daughter's discretion. This is impossible, espered. Miguel would never. Exactly. And look at the witness signatures. I studied the names. One belonged to Victor Daniels, Miguel's business partner who had moved away shortly after the funeral. The other. James Olingo, Iridia Load, the name sending a shock through my system. The same Hollington whose development company wants your property, Edward confirmed. His signature appears on a will supposedly signed 15 years ago, when he was just establishing his business here. The room seemed to tilt around me. James Hollington was now one of the most powerful men in town, and he was dating my daughter. That's when the second bombshell hit. Marian, there's more, Edward said gravely. While investigating this, I found something about Miguel's business dealings that doesn't add up. Large sums moving through offshore accounts. Properties I never knew existed. What are you saying? I think Miguel was involved in something problematic. And I think whoever altered this will knows what it was. Script part separator, My husband's secrets were now threatening to destroy what was left of my life. I sat there in Edward's office, feeling like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. Let me understand this, I said slowly. Miguel was involved in something illegal, And now someone is using that information to manipulate Anna and take our home? Edward nodded grimly. And they're moving quickly. The court date to validate this forged will is set for next Friday. That gives us exactly 8 days to gather evidence and stop this. 8 days to save my life, my reputation, and possibly my daughter from whatever scheme was unfolding. I left Edward's office with a plan and a renewed sense of purpose. If someone was using my daughter as a pawn, I needed to find out who and why. My first stop would be the county records office. The clerk, Martha, had known me for 20 years. Her face fell when she saw me approach. "Oh, Marion," she whispered. "I'm so sorry about everything." I forced a smile. "Martha, I need your help. I need to see all the property records for the Maple Street block for the last 6 months. She hesitated. "Those are being reviewed by the assessor's office right now. There's a big development proposal." "I know," I cut in. "That's exactly why I need to see them. Please, Martha. It's important." Something in my voice must have convinced her. 20 minutes later, I was looking at records showing every property on our block had been purchased by shell companies, all tracing back to Hollington Development, except ours. Our house was the last obstacle in James Hollington's perfect commercial complex. And he was dating my daughter. The pieces were falling into place, but I still didn't understand Anna's hatred. Something else was at play, something personal and poisonous that had turned my child against me. Script part separator, I left the records office with my head spinning, clutching copies of the documents that proved Hollington's systematic acquisition of our neighborhood. This wasn't just about our house, it was about millions in potential development profits. My next move was risky. I needed to see my house, our house, one more time, but not when Anna was home. I parked down the street, watching as she left for work at precisely 8:15 a.m., just as she always had. The sight of her, striding confidently to her car in her tailored suit, sent a pang through my heart. That was still my little girl, no matter what she believed about me now. I waited 15 minutes before approaching the house. The spare key I'd hidden years ago under the loose brick in the garden wall was still there. Anna never knew about it. My hands trembled as I unlocked the back door. Inside, the house smelled the same, like home. I moved quickly to Miguel's study, where I'd last seen his will. The room had been ransacked, drawers left open, papers scattered. Someone had been searching desperately for something. Behind Miguel's desk hung a family portrait, the 3 of us when Anna was 10. On impulse, I removed it from the wall, revealing the small wall safe I'd installed after Miguel's death. Anna didn't know about this either. The combination, Anna's birthday, still worked. Inside was a sealed envelope labeled for Marion, open only in emergency in Miguel's handwriting, and a small USB drive. Footsteps in the hallway froze my blood. Someone was in the house. I quickly pocketed both items and replaced the portrait, my heart hammering. I thought I heard something in here. Came a male voice I recognized immediately. James Hollington. What was he doing here in the middle of a workday? I ducked behind the heavy curtains as the study door opened. "You're imagining things," Anna's voice replied. "No one's been in here since Mother left." "We need to find those documents," James insisted. "Your father's old partner is making noise about coming back to town. If he connects with your mother, everything could fall apart." "She doesn't know anything," Anna said dismissively. "She never did. Dad kept her completely in the dark about his business." "For good reason," James muttered. "Just find whatever papers your mother was looking at before you confronted her. We can't afford loose ends." Script part separator, Their footsteps moved closer to where I was hiding. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they'd hear it. "Maybe she took them with her," Anna suggested, opening desk drawers. James sighed heavily. "We need those papers, Anna. The development plans go to the city council next week. If your mother shows up with evidence of the original will..." "She won't," Anna snapped. "She's too broken. You should have seen her face when I told her to leave." The cruelty in my daughter's voice made me flinch. "Besides," she continued, "she never understood business. Dad always said she was too soft, too trusting. That's why he kept her away from his real work." James's voice softened. You're sure this is what you want? Once we demolish this place. It's just a house, Anna interrupted. A house full of lies. Dad built his fortune while she thought he was just a regular businessman. She doesn't deserve any of this. They continued searching the study while I remained frozen behind the curtain, barely breathing. After what felt like hours, Anna's phone rang. We have to go, she said after answering. The architects are waiting at the office. After they left, I waited 5 agonizing minutes before slipping out. My mind reeled with questions. What had Miguel really been involved in? What had he told Anna about me? And most importantly, what was on the USB drive and in the envelope I'd taken from the safe? Back at the motel, I called Edward. I need a secure place to view some files, I said without preamble. My home office, he replied immediately. Come now. An hour later, we sat staring at Miguel's letter, the blood draining from our faces as we read his confession. My God, Edward whispered. Money laundering. Tax evasion. Properties purchased with illegal funds. Miguel was the financial front for a criminal organization. The USB drive contained spreadsheets, account numbers, and property deeds, a complete record of every illegal transaction. He was planning to turn state's evidence, I said, pointing to the last paragraph. That's why he created this backup. He was going to confess everything. Then he died suddenly, Edward said slowly. Very suddenly. The implication hung in the air between us. Had my husband's heart attack been entirely natural? Script part separator ===. But what about Anna? I asked, my voice breaking. Why would she believe I was somehow involved? Miguel and I shared everything. Edward skimmed the letter again. Here, he pointed to a passage. I've made Anna believe Marion knew everything and approved. It was the only way to ensure she'd never tell her mother what she overheard. I told her Marion was the mastermind, that her innocent act was just that, an act. The room tilted around me. My own husband poisoned my daughter against me, I whispered. All these years. And now Hollington is using that distrust, Edward concluded. He's manipulating Anna to get the property and probably to access whatever remaining illegal assets Miguel hid. We have 6 days until the court hearing, I said, finding strength in my growing anger. We need proof that the will is forged, and we need to show Anna the truth about her father, and about James. Edward nodded grimly. The forgery is sophisticated. We need a forensic document expert. And we need to find Victor Daniels, I added. If his signature was forged too, he can testify. Last I heard, he was in Arizona, Edward said, reaching for his phone. I have contacts who can find him. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of Anna's face, twisted with hatred for me based on Miguel's lies, kept me awake. Had my husband really been so desperate to hide his criminal activities that he'd destroy our daughter's trust in me? What kind of man had I really been married to? The next morning brought the first glimmer of hope. Edward's contact had located Victor Daniels in Phoenix. Better yet, he was willing to talk. Victor says he never signed that will, Edward reported. He's flying in tomorrow to give a statement. For the first time since Anna had thrown me out, I felt something like hope. We were building a case. We could expose the truth. Script part separator ===. That hope was short-lived. That evening, as I returned to my motel room, I found the door ajar. Someone had broken in. Inside, my few belongings were scattered across the floor. My suitcase had been emptied, the mattress slashed open. They were looking for Miguel's evidence. Thank God I'd left everything with Edward. I was gathering my things when my phone rang. The caller ID showed unknown. Mrs. Wilson, a man's voice said, low and threatening. You're playing a dangerous game. Who is this? I demanded, though I already suspected. Someone who knows what your husband was really involved in. Drop this investigation, or your daughter will learn exactly how her father made his money, and what happens to people who threaten to expose it. The line went dead. My hands shook as I called Edward. They're threatening Anna, I told him. You need to stay somewhere safe, he insisted. Come to my house. We have security. I spent that night in Edward's guest room, jumping at every sound. The next morning, We received word that Victor Daniel's flight had landed. Edward sent his assistant to pick him up. Hours passed with no word. Then Edward's phone rang. What do you mean, he never showed up? Edward demanded. His flight landed at 9:15. I watched Edward's face grow pale as he listened. Call the police, he finally said. Report him missing. Victor never made it out of the airport, Edward told me after hanging up. The security cameras show him being approached by two men, then leaving with them. His luggage is still at baggage claim. They got to him, I whispered. Just like they're trying to get to me. This is bigger than a property dispute, Edward said gravely. These people are dangerous. Maybe we should go to the FBI. Not yet, I said firmly. If we do that before we have proof, Anna will never believe me. She needs to see the evidence herself. We have 4 days until the court hearing, Edward reminded me. Without Victor's testimony about the forged signature, it's your word against theirs. That's when I realized we needed to change tactics. We couldn't just prove the will was forged. We needed to expose James Hollington's connection to Miguel's criminal past. Script part separator ===. I spent the next morning poring over the files from Miguel's USB drive. There had to be a connection between Hollington and my husband's illegal activities. Around noon, I found it. James Hollington, Marion, look. Edward pointed at a spreadsheet. 6 years ago, he was receiving regular payments from one of Miguel's shell companies. I scanned the document, my heart racing. He was involved. He knows everything about Miguel's criminal activities. And now he's dating Anna, Edward said grimly. Using her to get the property and probably to cover his own tracks. We need proof he's behind the forged will, I insisted. Something concrete that even Anna can't deny. Edward thought for a moment. The notary. Every will has to be notarized. If we can find who notarized this forgery. The signature on the document belonged to someone named Patricia Martinez. A quick search revealed she worked at a small legal office downtown. I'll go talk to her, I decided. She might remember notarizing a backdated document. Edward shook his head. Too risky. They might be watching you. Let me send my assistant. 3 hours later, we had our breakthrough. Patricia remembered notarizing the document just 2 weeks ago, not 15 years earlier as the date suggested. James brought it in himself, Edward's assistant reported. Said it was an old document that needed re-notarizing because the original notary had died. We finally had direct evidence linking Hollington to the forgery. But would it be enough to convince Anna? As if summoned by my thoughts, my phone rang. It was Anna. Mother, her voice was cold but controlled. I want to meet. Tomorrow. Noon at Riverside Park. Script part separator ===. I clutched the phone, my heart racing. After everything I discovered, hearing Anna's voice felt like a lifeline, despite her icy tone. I'll be there, I managed to reply before she hung up. Edward was immediately suspicious. It could be a trap. They might be trying to get Miguel's evidence. Or maybe she's having doubts, I countered, hope rising in my chest. Maybe something's making her question what she's been told. At least let me come with you, Edward insisted. I'll stay at a distance, but close enough to intervene if needed. I spent that night planning what to say to Anna. How do you tell your child that her father was a criminal who deliberately poisoned her against you? How do you explain that the man she's dating is using her to cover up his own involvement in those crimes? The next morning dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in clothes Edward's wife had lent me, wanting to look strong and composed when I faced my daughter. I tucked copies of the most damning evidence into my purse, not the originals, which remained locked in Edward's safe. Riverside Park was busy with lunch-hour visitors when I arrived. I spotted Anna immediately, sitting rigidly on a bench overlooking the water. My heart ached at the sight of her, still my beautiful girl, but her face was drawn with stress. Edward positioned himself at a cafe across the path, pretending to read a newspaper while keeping us in view. I approached slowly, giving Anna time to notice me. When she looked up, her expression was unreadable. "You came alone?" she asked as I sat beside her. "Yes," I lied, not mentioning Edward's watchful presence. "Anna, There's so much you don't know. Save it, she interrupted. I didn't come to hear more lies. She reached into her bag and withdrew an envelope. James asked me to give you this. If you sign these papers relinquishing all claims to the house and Dad's estate, he'll pay you $50,000. Enough to start over somewhere else. Script part separator, I stared at the envelope in disbelief. They were trying to buy me off with a fraction of what Miguel's estate was worth. Anna, you need to listen to me. James Hollington is using you. He was involved in your father's illegal business dealings. He wants our house because it's the last property he needs for his development. Her eyes narrowed. More lies. Dad told me you'd say anything to keep control of his money. I took a deep breath and pulled out the documents I brought. These are copies of your father's records. Bank transfers showing payments from his shell companies to James Hollington 6 years ago. And here's a statement from the notary who signed the will you presented to the court. She only notarized it 2 weeks ago, not 15 years ago. Anna's hands trembled slightly as she took the papers. She's obviously mistaken. There's more, I pressed on. Your father left a letter confessing everything. He was laundering money for criminals, Anna. And he lied to you about me to make sure you'd never tell me what you might have overheard. You expect me to believe this? She whispered, but I could see doubt creeping into her expression. What I believe, I said carefully, is that James approached you shortly after he made an offer on our house. That he showed you a will he claimed was your father's real one. That he's been poisoning you against me to get what he wants. That's ridiculous, she snapped, but her voice lacked conviction. Script part separator, Anna, I need you to ask yourself one question, I said, leaning closer. Why would I steal from you when I've spent my entire life putting you first? Everything I ever did was for you. Her eyes filled with tears. You sound so sincere. That's what makes this so hard. Because I am sincere. Look at me, Anna. Really look at me. Am I the monster James has painted me to be, or am I the mother who sat with you through every fever, who helped you with every school project, who celebrated every triumph and comforted you through every heartbreak? A tear slipped down her cheek. But Dad said, your father was protecting himself, not you. He used you as a shield against his own crimes. Anna's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face paling. It's James. He wants to know if I got your signature. Don't answer, I urged. Anna, there's something else you should know. Victor Daniels, your father's partner whose signature is on that will? He was flying in to testify it was forged. He disappeared from the airport yesterday. These people are dangerous. The color drained from Anna's face. What are you saying? I'm saying James and whoever he's working with will do anything to keep their secrets buried, including using you. Anna looked down at the documents in her lap, then back at me. Her expression changed, hardening with resolve. I need time to verify this information, she said, tucking the papers into her bag. Don't contact James or anyone else. If what you're saying is true. It is, I promised. And there's more evidence. Much more. She stood abruptly. I'll call you tomorrow. As she walked away, Edward approached. Did she believe you? I don't know, I admitted. But she took the evidence. It's a start. We have less than 48 hours until the court hearing, Edward reminded me as we drove back to his house. If Anna doesn't come around. She will, I said with more confidence than I felt. She has to. That night, I barely slept, wondering if Anna was reading through Miguel's confession, if she was connecting the dots that had been scattered throughout our lives. My phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Anna. Mother, I need you to meet me at James's office in 2 hours. Bring Edward and all the original evidence. Is that safe? I asked, suddenly alarmed. Yes, she replied firmly. I've made certain arrangements. Trust me. 2 hours later, Edward and I stood outside Hollington Development's gleaming headquarters. Anna met us in the lobby, her expression unreadable. This way, she said, leading us to the elevator. When the doors opened on the top floor, I gasped. The conference room was filled with people, police officers, FBI agents, and a very nervous-looking James Hollington. Anna's voice was steel. After you left yesterday, I took your evidence straight to the FBI. They've been building a case against James and his associates for months. Victor Daniels is safe. He's in protective custody. He was actually working with them. James glared at me with pure hatred. You should have taken the money. Anna stepped between us. And you should never have used me to hurt my mother. The next few hours were a blur of statements and evidence. The forged will was just the tip of the iceberg. James had been continuing Miguel's money laundering operation, using the development company as a front. Anna had unwittingly been his perfect cover, the grieving daughter reclaiming her inheritance. As we finally left the FBI office that evening, Anna took my hand, the first time she'd touched me since this nightmare began. I'm so sorry, Mother, she whispered. I believed him because it was easier than facing the truth about Dad. I squeezed her hand. We all believe what we need to believe sometimes. 3 months later, I stood on the porch of our home, our real home, watching as Anna planted new roses in the garden. The house was ours again, the forged will invalidated. James was awaiting trial, along with several of Miguel's former associates. Some vont dizer auslovely. Anna and I were rebuilding our relationship day by day, learning to trust again. Miguel's crimes had left scars on both of us, but we were facing them together. That evening, as we sat together on the porch swing that had held us through so many seasons of life, Anna rested her head on my shoulder. Mom, she said softly, using the name she'd called me as a child, I keep thinking about something you said. That you've spent your entire life putting me first. I smiled, stroking her hair. And I always will. Sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't property or money, it's the truth. And finally, after all these years, Anna and I had found ours.